Seatbelts are very important. They were created to decrease a person's acceleration in the time with the decrease of the vehicle's acceleration. While most people think that the two are one thing, they're actually very different and they're happening simultaneously. This is why you feel pressure from the seatbelt when the driver applies the brakes. Without a seatbelt, there is nothing to slow down your initial acceleration. If someone going 70 miles per hour were to slam on the brakes, a person who wasn't wearing a seatbelt would continue to travel 70 miles per hour because the seatbelt wasn't there to decrease the person's acceleration. This explains why people who don't wear seatbelts can often fly through the windshield during a high-speed collision. To show this visually, we have a pumpkin named Gerald. Gerald represents a person who is not wearing a seatbelt during a collision. This is how Gerald should look. But that's not how he's going to look during our experiment. In our experiment, Gerald is going to be simply resting in the hand of a person, much like sitting in a seat without a seatbelt. When the driver applies the brakes, Gerald is going to continue accelerating at the same speed the car was going before deceleration, approximately 25 miles per hour. Gerald is going to continue accelerating for a few reasons. First is because of inertia. Inertia is the principle that states that the motion of an object will remain the same unless acted upon an outside force. This applies to Gerald and people not wearing their seatbelts because it states that without a seatbelt to help a person's deceleration, they will continue moving the speed before deceleration begins. The second reason Gerald will continue moving is Newton's second law. Newton's second law states that more force is required to slow down an object with greater mass compared to an object with little mass. Force equals mass times acceleration. Although Gerald only weighs 4 pounds, he still kept moving due to inertia. Had Gerald been a 150-pound teenager going 75 miles per hour during a collision, it would have required much more force to stop him compared to a 4-pound pie pumpkin. And he'd be incredibly likely to break through the windshield. Basically, he should have been wearing his seatbelt. Finally, Gerald will continue moving because of Newton's third law. Newton's third law states that for every action force, there's an equal and opposite reaction force. Basically, during a collision between two objects, they experience forces that are equal in magnitude and opposite in direction. For the person in the collision, the equal and opposite reaction force is the person's body and seatbelt. If they're not wearing a seatbelt, then the opposite reaction force would be whatever their body impacts after the collision, usually the windshield, but it could be the ground if they break through the windshield and continue moving. Here's how our experiment represents this. Gerald will be resting in the palm of a person in the passenger seat. The person will have their arms sticking out of the window, and Gerald will be sitting on their hand. As the car accelerates, Gerald is being held in place in the back, much like a seat does in a car. When the brakes are applied, there will be nothing to stop Gerald's acceleration. Because he will continue moving, he will hit the ground forcefully, much like a person would hit the windshield. How Gerald survives and looks will represent the possible damage that could occur when someone doesn't wear their seatbelt. This is Gerald post-collision. After our experiment, it's become obvious that there is no reason to not wear a seatbelt when you are driving. All of Newton's laws state that you'll continue accelerating, even if the car doesn't. It'll take more force for you to stop accelerating, and a seatbelt is the best opposite reaction force for a sudden stop because it's designed to aid deceleration without injuring the person wearing it. Don't be like Gerald. Be better.